Your liver I call the project manager, because on a job site all the plumbers come to the project manager, the painters come to the project manager. The project manager is orchestrating the job site. So that's what your liver's doing. It's orchestrating the job site, of course, which is the human body. So a few facts on the liver. The liver is the largest internal organ in the body, and the liver is the only organ in the body that has the ability to regrow. And when you understand the liver, when you understand what it does, and it's the role that it plays, you'll understand why God made it so. You see, cancer cannot get a hold on the body if the liver's working in optimum performance.
Hello and welcome back. I'm Barbara O'Neill, and today we are diving into liver health. As we age, the liver's ability to function optimally can decline, which can lead to various health issues. In fact, about 30% of adults over 50 have some degree of liver damage, and many don't even know it. Your liver is responsible for detoxifying your body, processing nutrients and balancing hormones, making it essential to keep it healthy. In this video, we'll discuss the signs of a struggling liver, the factors that can harm it, and simple lifestyle changes you can make to support its health. As a thank you for joining me today, we're giving away 100 free copies of my best-selling book to our subscribers. So if you haven't yet, hit subscribe, like this video, and comment why you want to win. Now let's get started. As a thank you for joining me today, we're giving away 100 free copies of my best-selling book to subscribers. So if you haven't yet, hit subscribe, like this video, and comment why you want to win.
So what I want to do before I show you what the liver's doing today, I want to show you what it does with everything that comes into the body. So environmental poisons coming into the body, everything goes straight to the liver. And if it's toxic, the liver says, whoa, nasty guy, wrap him up in fat and store him. And if the liver looks at it and says, no, we can break that down to a state that can be easily released, that is what it will do. What about food? Let me show you what it does with the food that comes in. And never in the history of mankind have human beings eaten so many carbohydrates. So we're going to do a carbohydrate assessment. And I want you to tell me what most Americans had for breakfast this morning. Yeah, toast. So here we've got bread. Cereal's a very popular one. One lady said egg. Sorry, no one cooks anymore. Is that right?
Donuts.
Donuts. Surely not. And we talked about the healthiest part of the donut, didn't we? Which is the hole in the middle. So we'll say for the donuts, the cakes, you call them biscuits. Do you know what we call biscuits? Cookies. All of these foods break down in the gastrointestinal tract to a singular structure called glucose. Now the glucose goes on the M1 main highway, portal vein, straight to the project manager. And then the project manager determines where this glucose goes. And it'll take it inside the cell. Remember I promised you we'll be going to the CBD every day? So the glucose goes inside the cell. It goes through a 20-step pathway. The 20-step pathway gives us 2 units of energy. Isn't that why we eat? Now the end result of that 20-step pathway is a chemical form of glucose called pyruvate. Pyruvate is the chemical form of glucose that gets fed into the next section of the cell, often called the powerhouse, because this little 8-step pathway delivers to us a whopping 36 units of energy. So the question now arises, why does a 20-step pathway only give us 2 units, and why does an 8-step pathway give us 36 units of energy? The difference is oxygen. This is called an anaerobic pathway, anaerobic because it doesn't use oxygen. It produces energy by the process of fermentation. That's where a cancer cell lives. Remember what we looked at yesterday? Doesn't like oxygen, consumes 15 times the rate of glucose because it's running up there. Interesting. This pathway is called an aerobic pathway. It's called an aerobic pathway because it uses oxygen. Tomorrow, we're going to pursue that. But today we've got to stay on track. We're looking at the journey of glucose. So the first place that the liver will send the glucose, number one, is to the cell to be burnt as fuel. But on a high carbohydrate diet, you got a lot of glucose left over. And so now the body stores it in what I call the most amazing fuel, quick fuel supply in the body. It's called glycogen. They're little molecules of glucose just sitting in your muscle cell waiting to be used.
This glycogen is a quick-release fuel supply. When the body needs a burst of energy, it taps into these glycogen stores in the muscle cells and the liver. It's like having a backup energy system ready to go whenever it's needed, especially during physical activity or periods of fasting. However, the body can only store a limited amount of glycogen. Once the storage capacity is full, the liver has to deal with any excess glucose that remains. It then converts the extra glucose into fat. This fat is stored in the body's fat cells, leading to weight gain if the intake of carbohydrates is consistently high and not burned off through physical activity. The problem arises when people consume a lot of carbohydrates regularly, especially processed and refined carbs, which break down quickly into glucose. If these carbohydrates aren't burned off through energy expenditure, the body keeps storing the excess as fat. Over time, this can lead to metabolic issues such as insulin resistance, which is a precursor to type 2 diabetes.
Let's go back to glucose. So on a high carbohydrate diet, we've still got glucose left over because the cell can only store so much. By the way, the liver stores a little bit, and this glycogen can be sent all over the body, whereas the glycogen that's in the muscle cell, it's like in a prison, it can only be used by the muscle cell. And when you think about it, that's the cell that has probably the most demand on it. So what's the body going to do with the rest? What's the liver going to do with the rest of the glucose? Well, we've got an amazing fuel depot, fuel supply. I call it the basement stores. You know what the basement stores are? They're the fat cells. And what's happening to Americans today? Whew. They're getting bigger and bigger and bigger. When I used to visit my daughter 25 years ago, I could go to a store and buy a small size. Today I have to go to a special section called the petite section. Because 40 years ago, 50 years ago, my size was actually a normal size. It's actually not a normal size today, which is crazy, isn't it? But Australia's up equal with America here. 63% of Australians are obese or overweight. Whew. What's caused that? Here it is. It's the high carbohydrate diet. So the third place that the liver will send that excess glucose is as fat. Now what I've given you here is basic science. I might have mentioned earlier that I like to use the BHSC method: Bible, history, science, and common sense. So with history, we've got the history of people who never used to eat a high carbohydrate diet because people used to make what they eat. And that all takes a long time. So what did people eat a lot of? Well, Dr. Natasha Campbell McBride, in her book Gut and Psychology, she actually looks at the histories, and she said thick vegetable soups was probably one of the most common foods that people ate. You see, the mother would, on her fuel stove, would put it in the corner, and maybe she'd throw a bone or two in there as well, especially if they didn't have a lot of money, but the vegetables are cheap. So historically, people ate, on the whole, a lot of vegetables. And let's go back to even more primitive times when there wasn't refrigeration. If an animal was killed, they would dry a lot of it, they'd have a big feast for a couple of days, but they may not eat meat again for another month. What did they eat? A lot of vegetables, roots, things that they grew. So historically, you can see that. Now we're looking at scientifically. So when people are on this high carbohydrate diet, too much glucose is released. The body can only deal with so much, so it has to be stored in the fat cells. Now, Dr. Robert Atkins knew that science. So he looked at himself getting this, what we call spare tire. So he decided to do an experiment on himself. He decided to stop all carbohydrates. What did he eat? He ate a lot of vegetables, okay? And a lot of people don't realise that, with the exclusion of the potato. So he was eating a lot of fibre. And he knew also that the gastrointestinal tract needed to move through the next two food groups. He ate a lot of meat, butter, cream, cheese, eggs. So there was his protein. And meat, butter, cream, cheese, eggs was also supplying another food group, which was fat. Remember, he just experimented on himself. Few things happened. His weight just fell off. Why? Well, he's not supplying the quick-release glucose stores, and so his liver has to start breaking down his fat stores. It's called gluconeogenesis, creating glucose from the fat stores. He was never hungry. Why? Because these are the three food groups that keep the food in the stomach longer. Fibre binds up the glucose and it slowly releases it. Protein, well, protein's broken down specifically in the stomach. And fat, it coats the food a little bit, so it takes a little bit longer to break down. That's good news, because it means we don't have to be eating all day long. We can eat and forget about food for the next 5 or 6 hours. He had heaps of energy. Where's he getting his energy from if he's not giving this quick-release glucose foods? Well, as I mentioned, his liver breaks down his fat stores to give him the glucose, and his liver has the ability to break down protein and fat to give glucose. He had lots of energy, weight's falling off him, and he's never hungry. Has he found the perfect diet?
This diet helps with weight loss because it reduces the amount of fast-digesting carbs, which usually turn into glucose quickly. When your body isn't getting those carbs, it has to rely on its fat stores for energy through a process called gluconeogenesis. This is what triggers fat burning, leading to weight loss. The diet also keeps you feeling full for longer thanks to the combination of protein, healthy fats and fibre. Protein takes time to digest, so you stay full longer, and fats slow down digestion too. Fibre works by making the release of sugar into your blood slower, which helps prevent energy crashes that lead to cravings. Instead of feeling deprived like with low-fat diets, this plan encourages eating foods that are satisfying and keep your energy steady. Since the body is using fat stores for fuel, weight loss happens naturally and steadily. People don't have to starve themselves or count calories obsessively. They can eat enough to feel full and still lose weight. That's why so many find this approach more sustainable for long-term weight management.
So let's have a look at cholesterol. There are two main types. One is high-density lipoprotein called HDL, high-density lipoprotein, and LDL. HDL is usually called the good guy, and the reason for that is it's the carrier. So it carries excess cholesterol from the blood back into the liver. That's why it's called the good guy. LDL is called the bad guy. But what you've got to remember is the body doesn't make anything bad. It has a role. So what is its role? Its role is that of a repairer and a rebuilder. So wherever there's damage, you're going to find LDL because it's the repairer and the rebuilder. But it plays another role. It delivers cholesterol to the brain because the brain loves cholesterol. Cholesterol to the brain. Now let me show you something briefly. We're going to look at this in further detail later. Glucose burns at 4 calories per gram. A calorie is a unit of energy. That's what glucose burns at. Whereas fat burns at 9 calories per gram. Can you see why the brain loves fat? Because fat is going to give more than twice the units of energy, and our brain cells, they're consuming fuel fast. Let's have a look at the blood vessel and how the cholesterol works in the blood vessel. Because of its low density, LDL is always on the edge. Because of its high density, HDL is always in the middle. Dr. Natasha Campbell McBride, who wrote the book Put Your Heart in Your Mouth, she spends the first 4 chapters of her book defining what damages the arterial wall. See, the arterial walls are lined with little endothelium cells, and chemicals damage them. Heavy metals damage them. There's your mercuries. Also, what damages them is mold. And we're exposed to, she defines, the reason why it's 4 chapters, she defines all the different chemicals. They're in toothpaste, they're in food. What's going to plug the holes up, students? The LDL cholesterol, that's its role, that's its job. So it comes along and it plugs up. If it doesn't plug the hole up, we would bleed into the tissues. Can you see that? So they're like the Band-Aid. But the person doesn't realise that the mouldy house is killing them. The person doesn't realise the 4,000 chemicals that are in a cigarette. So they keep smoking. They don't realise the danger in their washing detergents, in their toothpaste. So can you see that it's still happening? And they read an article that says, no, mercury does not kill you at all. Well, I haven't read the science. You know, it's a neurotoxin. Can you see what's happening? Something else is happening. So all through the bloodstream, we've got little molecules of protein. When a person is on a high carbohydrate diet, releasing a lot of glucose into the blood, the glucose connects with the protein molecules, and these little combinations become sticky and they stick. And let's say we've got a narrow piece here and they come along and oops, they've caused a blockage. That is the number 1 cause of heart disease. That is the number 1 cause of a stroke, is this little blockage here from the movement of the combination of the glucose and the protein making its sticky molecules.
The real problem isn't cholesterol itself, but the damage and inflammation in the arteries. When there's damage, the body sends LDL cholesterol to help repair it. But if the damage keeps happening because of things like poor diet, smoking, or exposure to harmful chemicals, your body continues to send LDL. Over time, this can lead to blockages in the arteries. Cholesterol is really just trying to do its job. The real issue is the ongoing damage. That's why just lowering cholesterol with medication doesn't fix the root problem. If you're still dealing with inflammation and damage, the blockages can keep forming. One of the best ways to prevent this buildup is by cutting out processed sugars and refined carbs. Eating more healthy fats and fewer sugars can help your body run smoothly without constantly needing to patch things up.
It was probably 5 years ago now at Living Springs Retreat. We had a scientist do our program with his wife who was a nutritionist. They're both in their late 60s. She's 69. She said, I've been a nutritionist for 40 years. So she said, I was educated in university 40 years ago, and she said 40 years ago we were told that a cholesterol level of 300 and under was perfectly normal. Has the body changed? No. So can you see what medicine has done? They've dropped the levels. They now say that if you are over 190, you're a walking, talking heart attack. I have had people say that to me. One girl was 30, her cholesterol levels were 192, and the doctor said, you've got to go on cholesterol-lowering medication. 30! We had a pharmacist do our program. She said, this really annoys me. She said, I know it's only a money-making scheme. Because if you go on an antibiotic, you're on it for a week. If you go on cholesterol-lowering medication, how long are you told you're on it for? Life. Now, she said, I'm a pharmacist. I'm not against drugs. It's my business. But she said, this annoys me. You see, the brain needs fat. So a study was developed or started, I should say. A study was started in the little town of Framingham. In the little town of Framingham, 30,000 people were assessed. This has been going for 30 years. They started it to prove that cholesterol causes heart disease, but it hasn't. It hasn't at all. Some people with low cholesterol levels are having heart attacks. We had a lady from England do our program. She said, I had a heart attack recently and I had a cholesterol level of 150. She said they did an angiogram, my arteries were clear. What happened there? She was under great stress. You know, great stress can constrict the arteries. There are many factors that come into play, as you probably can see. But what this study showed, the Framingham Heart Study, that's what it's called, it showed that people with high cholesterol levels don't get Alzheimer's. Why don't they get Alzheimer's? Because what does the brain love? Fat. So what's a good cholesterol level? Oh, probably 200, 250. So see what's happened? They've got many people on cholesterol-lowering medication. They've got everyone on the fat-free diet, and because you're not getting the feeling of satiation or satisfaction when you eat, the person eats huge amounts of carbs. They've lowered the cholesterol level so they can get more people on cholesterol-lowering medication, and people are eating margarine. Oh, surely all of that has reduced heart disease. No, it's still the #1 killer.
To truly understand heart health, we need to consider the bigger picture. The focus on low-fat diets has led many people to think that eliminating fat is the answer to staying healthy. However, healthy fats are crucial for various bodily functions, including brain health, hormone production, and nutrient absorption. When people choose low-fat products, they often replace those fats with processed carbs and sugars. This shift can increase insulin resistance and inflammation, both of which contribute to heart disease. It's common to see people eating fat-free or low-fat foods loaded with added sugars and artificial ingredients, which might be worse for their health than the fats they're trying to avoid. Moreover, we can't ignore lifestyle factors that significantly impact heart health. Regular exercise, enough sleep, and effective stress management are vital components that many people overlook. A sedentary lifestyle and constant stress can harm heart health regardless of cholesterol levels. Instead of just focusing on cholesterol numbers, we need to educate people about the types of fats they should eat and encourage a balanced lifestyle. This includes a diet filled with whole foods such as healthy fats, fruits, vegetables, and whole grains. Thank you for joining me today to explore the vital role of your liver and how to keep it healthy. Remember, making simple lifestyle changes like eating a balanced diet, staying hydrated, and avoiding harmful substances can significantly impact your liver health. If you found this information helpful, please give this video a thumbs up and share it with friends and family who may benefit from it. Don't forget to subscribe for more health tips and insights. Together we can empower ourselves to live healthier, happier lives. Take care, and I'll see you in the next video.